Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is June the 4th. Nice day out there today. And I just want to take this opportunity to converse with you again and give you a little bit of information that I've been able to obtain with regards to a few things here in the town of Littleton. Primarily about the Shaker Lane School, building a new Shaker Lane School. But before I get to talking about the school, I just want to let you know a few other things. Sometimes there's a misconception about what taxpayers are paying for and what we're building and so forth and so on, because the information isn't very clear as to what is what. I want to start talking about the Littleton Electric Light Department, sewer and water. The sewer waste treatment plant that's being built at 242 King Street is not being paid by taxpayers to the extent that we're being billed on our taxes for that. That treatment plant is being built and paid for and operated by ratepayers. If you sign up for the sewer, then you are a ratepayer. As far as the citizen here in the town of Littleton goes, yes, we are a ratepayer only for the municipality buildings that is hooked up to the system. That's the only taxpayer money is going into that system as a ratepayer is the municipality buildings that are tied in to that sewer or will be tied into that sewer treatment plant. Before we built that plant, we had a small plant that the municipality was operating. So I want to just make that clear that it's the ratepayers and not taxpayers in general that's getting billed for that plant. It's the ratepayers. And as citizens here, we are ratepayers as far as our municipality facilities that are tied in to the system. We have a few systems that we're still pumping the septic system. 36 King Street is still a pumping system, and the police station is a pumping system. Those two facilities are not on the sewer treatment plant. So I hope I made that clear with regards to that. As far as the water treatment plant, the ratepayers are paying for that. If you're hooked up to town water, you are a ratepayer. You are paying for the for the water treatment plant. So if you're not on town water, you're not paying. So it's the ratepayers that are paying for that. Sometimes people make statements about things that are not quite true. Now we'll move on to the fact that I sent the governor a letter, and I asked her, I sent it to the governor, Speaker of the House, and to Mr. Augusta, who's the Secretary of Housing, and to Jim Osorio, and CC copies to the town and to LEW with regards to my request of advocating for funds for the wastewater treatment plant. Let me give you just a little information about the wastewater treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant, when it's completed here within the next few months and start operation, it has already maxed out the capacity of discharging clean wastewater, which is like 242,000 gallons a day, up at the discharge site, which is located at the high school. However, the manager at the Light and Electric and Water and Sewer Department have a request in before the Mass DEP for about 60,000 additional gallons to be discharged up at the school site as well. So that would give them about 302,000 gallons capacity per day once that 60 is approved. However, the plant still is at a standstill. It cannot go beyond that capacity. However, it has the capacity to go upward with discharge. But what do we need? We need land that we can perk and test and develop for a clean water discharge site. That is the letter that I sent to the governor. When the governor was down here on the 5th of May, up at 5:50 for the groundbreaking ceremony, I got the opportunity to talk to her and to tell her that I had sent a letter. She said she hadn't seen it. So I told her that I had sent it, and what we needed, Littleton needed more money for the wastewater treatment plant. She said, "You need more money?" I said, "Yes." So she said, "See Ed." Well, I didn't know exactly who Ed was that she was referring to. So I asked her secretary or special agent that was behind her, and she said, "It's Ed Augusta." And I went over and I found him. And he was talking to Mr. Jim Osorio. And I told him who I was and what I had did. He said also he hadn't seen the letter. But I told him what I needed. And he said that he would work with Jim on that. And I know that the Speaker of the House had Jim Osorio, when he was the chairman of the Housing, to get a bill passed through that was an infrastructure bill for water and sewer. And the tag on that was $5 billion. That is where I am trying to get money from that $5 billion bill that has been passed into law. And the reason that is that the 750 MBTA housing that the town approved here in Littleton, their sewage was not calculated into the plant discharge of the 242 gallons a day. So that's an addition. So we need to get some money so that we can develop some land for a discharge site. As I understand it right now, the general manager at Light and Water has been looking at some property over behind Badger Funeral Home. And it's a great possibility that that will be the ideal location to put in a new discharge clean water site, which is a short distance from where the plant is located. So I just wanted to let you know that we are working, and I say we, that's the general manager at Water and Light and myself is working with Mr. Jim Osorio. And in addition to me sending a letter to the governor, I know the governor got the letter, and she took action once she got the letter, and she sent a copy to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, because a lady from the Environmental Protection called me and told me that the governor had CC'd her on the letter, and she was going over. She's well known to Littleton, and she knows Littleton's situation. She said, however, that she was in the permitting department. However, she would, once we got this request in, she would support us getting whatever amount of money we needed to add in a clean water discharge site for the plant. So I thought that was very nice of her to reach out to me and let me know that the governor did ask her to contact me and see what she could do, or what the DEP could do, Department of Environmental Protection, could do for Littleton. And I think that's a big plus with regards to that. So the letter did not fall on deaf ears that went to the governor. So I have a meeting right now set up with the manager from Light and Water and Jim Osorio, and the manager at Light and Water is going to give a request to Jim exactly what amount of money he thinks that we need in order to purchase some land and develop a site to expand the sewer treatment plant. So that's all good news that the governor did pay attention to what I said, and I appreciate that, and I thanked her. And she said, once you put the request in, she told me let her know, because she would, at that time, would go out and support the request. So I think that's good news for Littleton. Now I'll move into the point of talking about Shaker Lane. First, I want to make it clear that I support our school system. Make no mistake about that. But I think that also has to be the right timing that we do certain things in this town as a whole when it comes to creating debt. Here is a letter here that I sent to the select board, the school committee, the finance committee, the school superintendent, Diane, the clerk, and to the chief assessor's office with regards to Shaker Lane. First, I want you to know that this year, Littleton property is being reevaluated. Under Prop 2.5, in the state of Massachusetts, it's done 5 and 10 years that they do a new assessment. So your property is most likely is going to go up a little bit when the new assessment come in on your property. It is more likely than not that it's going to go up a little bit. So, you as a taxpayer, where you stand, this is where you stand. You will pay the increase based on your assessment, and you will pay for new growth that takes place in the town of Littleton. So 2.5 plus new growth. That's where your tax is going to be on your property. If you build a school, there's an additional to you paying that tax for your property. There's going to be a debt exclusion for X dollars that's going to be above what you would pay for your own property. Now, based on that, this is what happens. Right now in the town of Littleton, there is 4,520 pieces of property that is billed for property tax. 4,520. I'm going to give you some numbers here in a few minutes, but I want to tell you that 4,520, if they go through with what they are planning on financing, which is 63.7 times 5% times 20, the annual payment on those figures will be just a teeny bit less than $5.1 million annually. So that means that the 4,520 taxpayers is going to have to come up with an additional $5.1 million if we decide to build a school. And it stays at the numbers that they have right now, which is the $104.2 million cost. Well, how much the state going to give you? Well, the state going to give you a little over 29%. This is 29.5 is what they're going to give you. So I just wanted to point out to you, your regular taxes are likely to go up, and if we pass at the town meeting to build a new school, those 4,520, we're going to have to come up with an extra $5.5 million a year for the next 20 years. The town responsibility on this, after deducting what the state is going to give you, is $74.7 million. $74.7 million. We're in the process of building this school. The town would borrow money here and there until the school is completed. Well, supposedly they have it calculated that there's going to be about $11 million like a down payment on this $74.7 million. If you subtract $11 million from that number, it leaves $63.7 million. That would be our responsibility over 20 years at a rate of 5%, if it stays at 5%. There's a lot of uncertainties that are known right now with building a new school, okay? So the taxpayer loan of the $63.7 million plus interest is going to look like this. Right here is a mortgage calculation. I went to a bank and had them to calculate out the 5% for 20 years. I did one better. I asked them to calculate it in case it goes up, say 0.5%, just to let you know what a 0.5% will do to the building of that school. The interest of 5% on a mortgage, and this mortgage here that I calculated is based on a monthly payment. There is a difference if you do monthly payment versus a flat rate of yearly. I'm not sure how the town pays these loans, whether they pay so much a month or whether they pay a lump sum annually. My figures may be off a little bit, but they're not off that much if they're doing a lump sum annually. The interest rate for 5% for 20 years on $63.7 million, the interest now, not the principal, the interest is $37 million. $37 million. So if you add the 63 and 37, you had $100 million for the school over 20 years. And if you add what the state is going to give you, which is the $29.5 million, now that school is up over $130 million that it will cost for that school. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a lot of moolah. That is a lot of money. The total for the 20 years plus the 63.7 comes out $100,894,033.41. That's at 5% if everything stays exactly where they're saying right now at 5%. Well, let's look at it and see what it would cost if it went up to 5.5%. At 5.5%, the interest rate alone will be $41 million. 37 if it's at 5, 41 if it's at 5.5. So it looks like a half a point will cost you $4 million. So 20 years plus the 63.7 million and the 41 for the interest come out to be $105,164,211.63. That's not including what the state is going to pay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a lot of money. Right now, they don't know. Here's what they have on the web telling you about this, but they don't tell you nothing about the interest. The interest is as important as the principal. But somehow, they don't like to tell you about the interest, what the dollars look like for interest. It's sort of kind of strange, huh? It's sort of kind of typical government doing this and not telling you. In my opinion, they should be straightforward with you 100%. They should tell you the principle. They should tell you what the interest numbers are they're working by. They should tell you about what the amount of interest that they're using for this, the number of years they're using for, our responsibility for the loan for whatever it's going to be. Why wouldn't they tell you the interest? They want to make it look like it's only $63.7 million. It's more than $63.7 million. But when they calculate it in, they're going to calculate the interest in it for 20 years. If you calculate just the 63.7, that's one thing. And you will get a rate as to what the debt exclusion would be. But you got to also include the interest in it. So it's going to be a different number now. There's no reason they shouldn't give that to you. There is no reason. I am telling you, you have to keep your eye on the ball with what is going on in this town when it comes to money. They give it to you, some of it, straight. They don't give you all of it straight. And they need to start doing that. They need to include the interest and tell us how much we're going to pay in interest, give us those figures and let us know what they are. We're not going to be shooting in the dark here. We need to know. And when I sent that letter to all of those that I just mentioned to you, I told them, I said, right now, because I had the opportunity to speak to a very dear friend of mine who is a top-notch professional engineer. And he has built schools in the state of Massachusetts to include skyscrapers in the state. And he told me, one, that the interest rate is too high. He said normally the interest rate for a school usually is between 2.5% to 3.5%. He said the interest rate is really too high. That's one reason you shouldn't build a school. But he also told me, he says 65% of a school building is steel. With the tariff that is in place right now, he estimated it would be at least $20 or $25 million built in on the system. And let me tell you something else, if you didn't hear it yesterday. The president of these United States signed an executive order yesterday bumping up the steel tariff by 50%. That was yesterday. So that number of 104.2 has already been effective. There are so many uncertainties that are in place right now that we don't have answer for. There's no way on God's green earth you as a taxpayer, as a citizen of Littleton, and as a voter should vote to build a new Shaker Lane school at this time. What do we need down in Shaker Lane? As I say again, I'm for the school, but it has to be at the right timing to build it. Well, let me give you an example here. And think about how important it is to a taxpayer. First and foremost, seniors have grandchildren that are in the school system. But they continue to pay their share of taxes to the school. They're not exempt. They continue to pay. We have retired seniors. We have one income seniors. We have seniors that looking forth to retire within the next 5 to 7 years. And when you retire, in most cases, unless you got a big, fat, healthy 401k, you're basically going out on whatever the pension that you have set up with your employer, or going out on Social Security. Your income dropped at least by 50%. And with that taking place, and you retiring, already retired, and now they want to talk about putting a debt on the town of this kind of money, and they don't know. They said in this paperwork right here, they give an example for the DOR calculator, saying that if you had a piece of property that was property tax come in at $10,000 and something a year, your tax would jump up by $1,008. And in my letter I sent to them, I says, if we take the low end and say it's $1,175, I say, here's what I'm concerned with. I'm concerned with that taxpayer being able to manage their budget with that $1,175 being added in, that they had to pay for additional taxes because of the school. What if a taxpayer can't pay their taxes? Well, first and foremost, that is a sad affair. And in most cases, it would not be their fault because they can't. It would be the fault because we moved ahead and said build a school when we didn't have all of the knowns as to how this was going to affect a population of this, a segment rather, of this population in the town of Littleton. That amount of money is nothing to sneeze about. We need to understand it is better for Littleton to lose their standing in line than to see a taxpayer lose their home because they could not pay the taxes. At this critical time in the economy, if I was the governor, I would put a moratorium on building new schools in this state and let everybody freeze in line where they stand at until the interest rate, 2 or 3 years, the interest rate is going to come down and the tariff is going to come down. That's what needs to be done. A moratorium put in place. Because otherwise, you're giving away money to duty on products that could be used to help pay the cost to build. That's what needs to be done. A moratorium put in place. But it is nonsense to think that we're going with all these uncertainties and approve to build a new school. There is an alternative to this. And I made it known in the letter when I sent it to the officials here. And what did I tell them? I told them, all you need to do is get some schoolroom modules and set up over at Shaker Lane. You need additional space. And this is where we could get temporary relief. I'm not saying we're not going to build a school, temporary relief. There are probably some schools in the district, not this district, but districts throughout the state of Massachusetts. They have some of these classroom modules that they would just give away. Littleton could pay the movement and the setup of these modules until such time that it is better for us to talk about building a new school. Let me tell you one thing further. When I went to the bank and asked the bank to do this calculation for a commercial of 20 years at 5%, at $63.7 million, the manager of the bank told me our bank has stopped making commercial loans for construction. And he said there are other banks are doing the same. If the banking industry smells smoke, everybody else should be smelling smoke. That means that things are not going well when a bank put a freeze on giving out loans. And as I've said time after time, Littleton, we have some smart and intelligent people in this town. And we need to understand that there's a right time for us to step forward and say we're going to build a school. But I can tell you that this is not the time for us to step forward and build a school. As a matter of fact, the school department, school committee, finance committee, and the select board, you should not even present a school warrant item on the warrant on the upcoming town meeting in November because there are too many uncertainties with regards to building a school at this time. We know the tariffs are there. We do not produce steel. We get our steel from Canada, just like we get the lumber from Canada. The answer for now, and I told them in the letter that I sent to them, I cannot support building a new school now. But I will support getting classroom modules and tie them into Shaker Lane for extra space down there so they don't have to teach our special ed kids in converted closets. Whether they're going to listen to what I say, I don't know. But I can tell you this. I'm always laboring and trying to get the right information to give to voters, citizens, and taxpayers here in the town of Littleton, like I'm doing right now, telling you. I make the effort to reach out and get a hold to someone that I know that has the knowledge to answer some questions for me. Maybe you say, why do you do it, George? Yeah, I'm retired. I don't have to do it. I do it because I care. I do it because there are certain people that don't have the ability to know where to go to find information and to get information and pass it on to other people. I'm not here about trying to make a name for myself. I'm George Alton Sanders Sr. And it's because what's in my heart that I love and I care about people, and I like to see people cared and loved for and treated right and told the truth. That's what it's about. Not looking for no name. Don't need no name. All I want to do is give you good information because I am not getting it. That means you're not getting it. We're not getting that from the officials. Why in the name word on God's green earth would you tell me about the principle and not tell me about the interest? I'll tell you why. It's too big of a figure. They want to keep it down low. It make you think that that's. And a lot of people, they don't think about the interest in some aspect. Sometimes people do and sometimes they don't. But I can tell you for a fact, they're going to calculate it in when they bill you for the debt exclusion if we pass it. And we don't know what the interest rate going to be because right now they're using the figure 5. And like I said, if banks have stopped making construction loans, that should be a signal, and it should be red flags popping up left and right if bank is put there. And also, my friend told me, he said, right now in the construction industry out there, he said, is that a crawl right now because of the tariffs. And as you well know, if you don't know, the lower court said that Trump did the tariff illegally. But you know what the Supreme Court said? They said, we're going to let it stay in place and let him continue to do what he's doing for now. How long is for now? So that means he's got to go. Just like I said, yesterday he bumped the steel up by 50% more. And we're talking about building a new school. No, I said no. I'm going to continue to say no until I see interest rate coming down, and tariffs coming off. And like I say, the school committee, finance, and the select office, you should not put a warrant item on the warrant about Shaker Lane School. You should take heed. And know that There are so many uncertainties right now, we don't know. They threw out in this piece right here and said from 27 through 29 that you would be billed about $400 a year. They cannot guarantee that. We don't know. From 25 to 29 and 30 is when this is supposed to kick up to this $1,000 they projected that would take place. Who knows what the interest rate going to be? You don't know. You need better information than what we got right now. And we know the tariffs on products, like the gentleman said to me, he said, even our cabinets, they'll import it. There's so much stuff that's imported now in the United States that goes into a building that we just don't think about it. I was listening on the news last night. This doll that Walmart has that's $34 and some change. Walmart is now charging $49 and some change for that same doll. And they say it's because of the tariff. That's almost 50% increase on that $34 doll. There's no reason for us to ignore what is going on with the economy right now and the uncertainties that are in place that we do not know about. And vote to build a school. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, do not be fooled. Let's do things right. Tell them to get some classroom modules for time being tied into Shaker Lane School so they'll have additional space there and we can continue to take care of minor maintenance and stuff that needs to be done with the school. When we rebuilt or rehabbed Russell Street, the state gave us a 65% reimbursement to that. And I think the middle school was somewhere maybe in the 40. But we do not need to go in debt and hurt the citizen, taxpayers, of trying to pay a debt exclusion that we do not know right now how much it would end up being. I sent an email to the finance chairman and was asking me about the $400 and what it was going to be in FY30. And he said to me, go online, George. It's on the web there. There's a calculator there. He said, and you'll find more information there. He said you would have to wait at the time of borrowing the money for the loan to know what it's going to be at that time. Right now, it's hard to tell what that would be. And that's true. So why would we vote something in November when we don't know what's going to be down the road in FY30? There's no reason for us not to do a temporary fix for space and wait and see how the economy is going to react. Trump ain't going to be in there forever. So the interest rate is bound to come down, because when things started coming to a standstill and they like to get momentum going back again, then things started coming down. The tariff would drop off on things. The interest rate would drop off. This is not a fix for life where we at right now. Things are going to change. Well, what about a spot in line? Listen, don't worry about the spot in line. Be more, you officials in play, you should be more concerned about whether or not the taxpayers can pay it. You're putting your home in jeopardy even if you don't have a mortgage payment. Or if you do have a mortgage payment, can you pay it without any problems? I've heard people say, oh, the tax is so bad, I'm moving out of Littleton. Being irresponsible, like building a school now, and I consider, that's my opinion, it's irresponsible for us to go in debt like this. You don't have to agree with me, but we should have the right to agree to disagree. I think it's irresponsible for us to talk about building a school now. And those of you may not agree with this. You might say, well, George, you're wrong, whatever the case is. I'm going to leave you with a point that I've always believed in. And that is, every person has a PhD in CS. And some people laugh at me and say, hey, what is that, George? I said, that's a doctor in common sense. And they look at me a little strange. I said, you want me to tell you why? I said, nothing that man or woman can store upon you can be ever superior to that which God gave you. God gave you the greatest that is, the senses that he gave you. No matter what you achieve in life, it has to come by way of what God gave you first. And there's nothing superior to what God gave you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, as always, for giving me the opportunity to come forth and express my thoughts and opinion, and where I have professional, good, sound knowledge, I always try to give you the best that I can. God bless you, and have a good day.